fine, gravity pulling you downward. I'll tell you what I found. When you hang upside down for 2 or 3, 4 minutes.
Woo! How's it going, everybody? That's 40 meters right now, listening to it in the background. Let's see if some people joining us here. Hearing me okay, everybody? How are we doing? Hopefully you're having a great mid-holiday week. We're in between the holidays. We got through Christmas, and now we're into New Year's here. This is the Ham Radio Crash Course. How's it going? I'm not seeing anything. Okay, 5-9, everybody. Yeah, busy week. Okay, good. Everybody's hearing me. Great. Excellent. All right, well, this is the Ham Radio Crash Course. We're getting ready here. How's it going, everybody? Good to see you. Been a busy week on our end. We had hosted a lot of people, but I'm really excited for today's stream because we're talking about a little bit of prepping stuff, specifically with ham radio. And we've talked about emergency preparedness, and this is a big one, right? EMPs, grid down situations. What do you do? How do you prepare? I don't consider myself an expert in any of these prepping areas per se, but I am really into it. It was actually one of the reasons I started my YouTube channel was for prepping, emergency preparedness, all that stuff. So I came to it from a broader standpoint. Always being a ham was always a part of my life. It was always a thing that I was involved in. So bringing it all together, the emergency preparedness. Ooh, my hat's slightly green screened out. That's kind of cool. I find that really, really important and really awesome. So who do we got in the chat so far? Busy week. James Hannibal's on here. He's the winner of the 70 FT70. It went out today, so sent you the tracking number for that. The Smoking Ape is checking in from Earth. Glad you could make it. And good. I hope we can continue to do that, even if we're faced with an EMP or a coronal mass ejection, which we'll talk about shortly. I'm going to tear into this right now. This is the beer for the day. This is the Sula by Modern Times, which is one of my favorite breweries, I think. They're a very, very interesting brewery. Oh, we got Snake Man 250 checking in from Australia. And this is a... what do you call this? This is a Berliner-style Weiss beer with raspberries, blackberries, and black raspberries added. So a little tart, kind of back to the sour a bit. Whew. All right. Oh, yeah. Whew. Forget about that one. Boy, oh. Anyway, let's talk about some news really quick, and then we'll get started. Moving forward with ham radio, and this is going to be one where we're going to move forward with ham radio. If you don't know about EMPs or coronal mass ejections, then this is going to be an interesting one. It is 6.5% alcohol by volume. Somebody asked in the chat. So how do you prepare? Do you have any preps? Do you have any things you stockpile maybe, or anything radio related? I'm sure you've got some radio stuff that you use that you may be thinking about. How do I prepare for something bad that may happen? So very good. Matt Rogers checking in from Fontana, normally watching from Phoenix. Right on. I'm not far away from Fontana. Yep, can of beans and beer, says Snake Man 250. That's a good way to go too. Now we just got to talk about radio and add that to it a little bit. Oh, somebody's got a scotch with them tonight. A Colco says a Glen Alachi, which I'm not very good at Scottish, so I don't say the names correctly. Anyway, so how do you prepare? Now, everybody's got their own thing that they do. I want to remind everybody we will be doing call-ins, so if you want to call in and talk about how you've prepared for ham radio issues. And we are going to talk about EMPs a bit, and I don't want to make people think that if you don't believe in EMPs or the effect of EMPs that you still shouldn't be prepared for a grid down situation. You absolutely should, because in ham radio, they connect to field operations and off-grid operations and all that good stuff. So keep that in mind. News, Winter Field Day is coming up. I mentioned it last week, which is going to be the 26th through 27th, 2019. That's always a fun one. Field Day in June is great, but Winter Field Day is really, really nice because you got to go out there and you got to actually experience the cold, depending on where you live, of course, but always a good time. Reminder on the Audible Fast Track Amateur Radio Series. If you are in the car a lot, you don't find you have time to read. I've been using it for the extra class training, and it's very good. So on Audible Fast Track Series, if you use Hashnasi, it'll help me out. I think you get a free book. So you'll get whatever audiobook you're looking at. If you're looking to get a technician, use Hashnasi, you get technician. If you're looking to get extra or general, use the code if you're not already an Audible member, and you can get access to a free book. We crossed 2,000 members on Facebook and 1,000 on Discord. The communities there last week did a whole video just on how much I appreciate the communities we got going. So make sure to check those out if you haven't already. It's a lot of fun and a lot of help. Let's see. W5KUB. I don't know. I didn't see him in the chat yet. He may come by. We'll hopefully be with him again on Tuesday, and they stream every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, so check them out too. That's a lot of fun because I get to hear a lot of other really smart people talk about what they're doing in ham radio, which is awesome. And of course, the January newsletter should be coming out soon. So if you're not a patron or you're thinking about it, it's just $1 to get the newsletter, and the link is in the description. So check that out. Okay, 6 minutes in. That's pretty fast for an opening. So good. I got the beer out of the way. How's it taste? Like a fruity Berliner Weiss. Berliner Weiss are already kind of tart on their own, and then throwing a bunch of raspberries on top of it's a little much. I've got a backup beer, which I may end up getting into, which is the Sugar Shack. I think I've drank this one before on stream, but that is a stout. So Andy Cowley says we got solar winds at the moment. Yes, indeed, and we will talk about that. Tyler Cruz says, got my DMR radio today and was able to check into the HRCC net tonight. Wow. Think for the DMR talk group last stream. Yeah, absolutely. The thanks go to Loyal/Zach, who may be in the chat. Drop that Discord link. Also in the comments, if you go to the comments on the video, I posted the link to Discord. He's the one that runs our live stream on our net on DMR, and he does a great job at it. So thanks to him. And James Hannibal says, I keep a small QRP rig and Baofeng radio in a Faraday cage box in each family car. Oh, there you go. We should talk about that. You should call in, James. Okay, so let's talk. Where are my slides? Oh, call-ins in a little bit. Let's take that one off for a second. Okay, grid down and ham radio. So I don't want to say this is an EMP presentation because it's not really an EMP presentation. It's more about grid down. And in fact, let me grab this. I'll need this briefly just to show you what's going on. This month, there was a report done by the NIAC. If you look up NIAC report on surviving catastrophic power outage that was released in December, you will see it and you can read it. It's a pretty easy read. And I'm not going to say it was the most helpful thing. It mainly says, yeah, we got vulnerabilities, and what are you going to do about it, governments? Because we do, and I'm going to talk about some of the takeaways as we go through the slides. I'm of minds of like, well, they obviously can't say a lot in the report and tell exactly what the problems are because then there could be, major issues with that. But also, it clearly states that communication is an issue, so. Very important to be prepared as far as that all goes. So let's go to the next slide. So as I kind of already said, communications are affected during grid down situations, and cyber attacks in the NIAC report, they were actually more concerned about cyber attacks. Oop, why'd you do that? And that's one way that our grid is vulnerable, and given enough time with a grid down situation, lack of communication is going to be a huge problem. Lack of power in general is going to be a huge problem. What's going to happen is you lose power, people start to panic over lights, food, water, access to medical stuff. My green hat is turning, my blue hat's turning green. And all that stuff is going to be like top priority, but then communication is going to fall to the wayside. So it's really interesting to be prepared for that kind of situation. If you are in a grid down situation, how vital will your communications be? Just at your private level, but actually be able to help out your society. So, very important. Tactical Magic says, people are too dependent on government, here in the UK anyway. Like JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you. Yeah, no, I agree with that. In fact, I agree with that. And I'm coming at this talking about the report because it's kind of in the news, and I've gotten a couple of messages, actually, people asking me what my thoughts were and if I would do a video on it. So this is kind of what that is. So you got to be prepared on your personal level. You got to be trained. You got to know how to operate your radios. You got to know how to do all that stuff on the personal level. You can't expect the government just to bail you out. And this green screen thing's bugging me. Let me see if I can fix it. Let's see if that did it. Is that better? Oh, that's a lot better. I don't know, it was just too bright. It was washing out my hat. So, yeah, I'm a big advocate of, hey, heed the warnings, but be personally responsible and personally prepared. So, and as I mentioned, the National Infrastructure Advisory Council produced a report called Surviving Catastrophic Power Outage, which I think you should take a look. It's probably a good bedtime read, puts you to sleep pretty quickly. The report was produced to define the issues within the U.S. grid. In this report, the necessity of communication, including amateur radios called out by name, were referenced. So EMP Commission, that's another report that is available that you can look at. That's free online. That one goes into a little bit more meat of what an EMP is and how you may be able to prepare for it. So that's good too. You might want to check that out. Just look up EMP Commission report. So here's a couple of major takeaways that I took, and I bolded the parts that I felt were the most important from the NIAC report. And that we need to develop, and they're saying, develop as in the government or incentivize or help people or provide information, all that stuff. A flexible, adaptable emergency communication system that can interoperably be used, that is self-powered, and is reasonably protected against all hazards to support critical services, restoration, and connect infrastructure owners and operators, emergency responders, and government leaders. That is a huge task to do if you have a widespread grid down type situation. That is very hard to do. And interoperably use is very difficult. So I'm going to mention areas. We've done interviews with people in Aries. I suggest you take a look at those videos. Gotta go check out your local Aries, races, etc., and really think about getting involved, because that interoperability between communication is going to be extremely difficult. How do we use what? When do we use what? What nets do we use? What digital modes? I know a lot of people use WinLink because it's kind of easy to use, but you really think about that as we go further here. So second takeaway from the report, backup power generation is commonly accepted emergency response standard, but backup, i.e. diverse or redundant, meaning we have mainline communication and that gets taken out or damaged or destroyed. Do you have a backup? Most likely not, and that's the big takeaway here. Capabilities are generally not standard. So in our own systems, in government, in different, where we generate power, medical, there is one radio type of situation or communication setup that they have, but they have no redundant capabilities. Or if they did, it's not co-located with the unit that could potentially get damaged. So third takeaway, the electric industry has been examining, and they said, historical methods of enhanced resilience, use of amateur radio or single sideband radios for communication, and manual management electric grid operations. So they're already acknowledging that, yep, we have to prepare and have communications, redundant communications, and systems deployed or at least thought of as far as what they're going to do in a situation like this. Now, I'll say right up front, they are, this is a huge challenge to organize anything like this from the government, and I feel that they are woefully unprepared and inadequately prepared to do it. I feel that it is extremely difficult to have this type of redundancy and interoperability that they are claiming. So, yeah, power to them. But we're talking about being personally prepared today, so let's keep going. So big takeaway here, long duration lasting several weeks to months, at least 2 months, but more likely 6 months or more is what you could potentially have to deal with a power outage or a grid down situation. This is due to the physical destruction of equipment, right? Those have to be replaced. So they've got to bring the replacement in. And then they have to figure out how to power everything back up in a way that doesn't create an overload or bring the system back down again. Extremely difficult to bring a grid back online once it's all pulled down. So, man, very, very difficult to handle that. And then, or the severity of the event resulting in limited workforce to repair damage because people have left, they've gone home. I don't want to deal with this. I want to be with my family. People are looting in the streets. Or the inability to create or transport replacement parts. Again, what I've already mentioned, right? If you break something like a huge transformer, like if you burn out a bunch of the windings on the transformer because of a CME or a grid down situation of unknown severity, let's just say there's some kind of damage. There's really not much you can do other than replace it. And some of these things are huge, so very difficult. And this is the second bullet is very troublesome. Affect a broad area of a nation covering multiple states or regions, impacting between 50 million to 75 million people. That is an astronomically large number of people. And then lastly, exceeds or exhausts capabilities of existing mutual aid programs and emergency response plans. Very much so. So just a couple quick things on EMPs. An EMP, basically, regardless of how it's produced, although you've probably read stories or read different articles, that it's the detonation of an atomic weapon in the Earth's high atmosphere. Low atmosphere for space, but very high Earth atmosphere. And it's comprised of mainly 3 pulses: an E1 pulse, an E2 pulse, and an E3 pulse. The E3 pulse is the slowest pulse, E1 is the fastest, and then E2 is shortly after E1. E1 is a fast pulse, high voltage electromagnetic pulse that basically breaks down components within electronics, right? Anything that has like an upper voltage limit, if that unit becomes energized with the pulse, you could potentially break those components. So that's kind of how this one works. E2 is similar to lightning. It's considered the easiest to protect against with lightning arresters and whatnot. I want to go back to E1. I've just remembered something. E1, technology today, believe it or not, is relatively equipped to defend against E1. It's not equipped when we get to E3, the slow pulse, if your phone is connected to a power line and you're charging it. You could fry it that way. Basically, what E3 does is it's a slow pulse, similar to a coronal mass ejection. An E3 pulse affects transmission lines appearing similar to a DC current. So it fries things that are AC, and it does considerable physical damage. So anything that could be a transmission line or an antenna or anything like that is potentially vulnerable to an E3 pulse. So anything could potentially be damaged. There have been experiments done in the pre-90s, so everything before the computer era, regarding EMPs. We've had situations of coronal mass ejections, and people's responses to damage or the expectation of damage, it's varied. Case in point, they tested, I believe, 10 cars. Everybody always asks, what does an EMP do to a car? They did an EMP test against 10 cars, and all but one of the cars, they all pretty much stopped, but all but one could be restarted, turned off, restarted, and worked. So that's good. The problem is that study was done pre-1990, so before the real mass injection of electronics into the automotive industry. So we don't really know what the effects are for a lot of this stuff. So it's important to keep that in mind. So, redundancy is always good. Admin Evan, he provided a couple pieces of information. He did a slide on CMEs, or a package of slides on CMEs, and a lot of them were really, really good, so I wanted to do a quick takeaway. So all those little red dots are at-risk transformers that could be affected by a CME or an EMP. Basically says this map shows the at-risk transformer capacity by state for a 48 what is that? Newton ton geomagnetic field disturbance regions with high percentages of at-risk capacity could experience long-duration outages extending for several years. According to a 2008 report from the National Academy of Sciences, it could cause extensive social and economic disruptions due to its impact on power grids, satellite communication, and GPS systems. That's $2 trillion if we got hit by a CME. And I would like to point out, let's see, there was one slide, I was going to put it in, but I ran out of time. We had a large CME event happened not too long ago. I'm sure Evan, if he's in, he can provide the date. But the only reason we didn't get smashed was because the sun where it happened was pointed not at the planet. If it was pointed at the planet, it could have potentially brought us back to the Stone Age. No, not really. That's a bit over dramatic, but it would have affected us greatly to the point of basically what you're looking at here, right? Basically bringing down a lot of these power generators would have brought us way down. We would have had very little power, and it would have been private power at that point. You basically become an entrepreneur of power if you had a big enough generator. 1989. That sounds about right, which in the large scale of things is not too long ago. So after the event, let's see, after event downtime, in the NIAC, I'm going to have problems with that, an EMP Commission reports estimate grid downtime after an event ranges for weeks to months, as I mentioned. This includes all the services that rely on power to function. Obviously, your lights, water, sanitation's huge, hospitals, and refrigeration, medicine, food, etc. So if you're diabetic or you know somebody that's diabetic, lose the grid, and all of a sudden they have a big problem with their diabetes medication, right? So big problem, big problem. And people are just trying to survive at this point, and they will have no communications because those get wiped. And so you, the amateur radio operator, technically, or could be, find yourself in a situation where you could provide an amazing service to people if you're prepared for this. Now, I want to be clear. This is like a doomsday type scenario. Don't think of this as preparing for a doomsday type scenario. Think of this as preparing for a field operation. Think of this as preparing for a localized power outage, which happens all the time. There's many reasons to prepare, and the way you would prepare for ham radio in a disaster is very similar to how you would prepare for local field day or whatever. So keep that in mind. Communications in a grid down environment. Comms will be offline. It's not necessarily, I mentioned, cell phones might be okay. They might just get shut off and you have to restart them. It's fine. It's the telephone tower network. The network itself is going to go down because those run off of power. So you're going to lose the cell phone network. The internet's obviously going to go down to some point, and you're going to lose. See, here's the scary thing. Even if you'd almost have to go back to analog television, because depending on how the stations that created the broadcast created them and how they distributed them, you might not be able to get any of their digital television, even if their equipment wasn't knackered. Let's see. Evan, somebody asked about generators. What about EMP-induced Fukushima events? Dozens of no infrastructure. Yeah, that's true. Somebody asked about generators, though. Evan handled it, though. Generator is less likely to be affected than a car due to the simplified circuitry. Inverter-type generator would be more vulnerable. Yeah, an inverter would be... Yeah, I guess so. So, interestingly enough, if you had a long power line... this is assuming a disconnected generator. So, yeah, you're probably okay. And I want to make a note. Most first responders and those working to recover services will need to rely on off-grid communications such as amateur radio. That is a fact. That is absolutely what would happen. So what should you do to protect in your area? So these are my opinions. These are not anyone else but my opinions. Some share opinions with me, but others may not, and that's fine. In fact, I'll post the call-in. You can call in and you can disagree with me live on the air in a little bit. I recommend a 100-watt HF transmitter, a backup 100-watt HF transmitter, something that you could potentially put in a Faraday bag, which I will be talking about at the end of the stream. We're going to do an example of a 15-liter EMP bag. That's what I would recommend. Portable's good here, so something like the Yaesu 891, that would be a good choice. Of course, you need to bring all your accoutrement with that, tuners, etc., all that stuff. A 50-watt VHF UHF mobile. I love handy talkies, love them, but going from the top down, these are my recommendations. Solar panels, at least 200 watts for prolonged operation, because you are going to be, if you're going to become vital or find yourself in a situation where you must take on the mantle of being able to move a lot of traffic, you are going to be operating a lot. And that's going to drain your batteries. And the only way they're going to keep those batteries topped up is if you have at least 200 watts of power, if not access to that much power, because you're going to kill them. 200 watts even might be too low. So keep that in mind. Batteries. So I recommend both lithium-based and SLA, and I think I make a point of this later. I do, and if not, I'll come back to it because it's a very important point. Laptop. Going to need a laptop, so you're going to need a Faraday cage or something like that, which we're going to talk about briefly. And by the way, anything I mention, there will be a link in the description to my Amazon store, which I have posted the link. It costs you no more to go through my link, but it helps out the channel, so that helps me out, and so we can produce things like this. The laptop will potentially be vulnerable because while your phone may have decent shielding, well, I'm assuming a lot of laptops have decent shielding too, you can't guarantee it. You don't really know. And until you actually like go get your laptop EMP tested, you're not gonna know. So it's better to be a little safer than sorry. There's lots of things you can buy, sleeves for Faraday cage type situations that you can put most of this stuff in. And I'll show you this 15-liter one. You can actually fit a lot of stuff in it. Equipment needed to bridge connection from PC to radio. So yeah, if you need the laptop for doing digital modes, then you're also going to be needing TNC, cables, anything to distribute power, power supply, potentially all those things can be affected in a EMP type situation. So, it's best to have them disconnected. It's even better if you have them in a Faraday cage. Bo asks a question. What about burying a standard ammo box with gear more than 3 feet in the ground? So an ammo box is going to be fine. I believe an ammo box makes an okay EMP container. An EMP container, you can look this up. It's a trash can. It's a galvanized trash can. Makes a really good EMP container, and it's cheap. The only thing that's important here is you must have a serious layer of insulation between the outer metal or whatever is a conductor of electricity and the insulator between your electronics, because it doesn't have to be grounded either, believe it or not. What's going to happen is the outer field, the skin, will become energized, and as long as the inner products are insulated with a thick enough insulator, they're protected. So keep that in mind. You can use something as simple as a trash bag. Actually, I would probably use multiple trash bags, maybe some heavier duty bag. The website I saw that was doing a DIY Faraday cage out of a galvanized trash can was just using cardboard. Really simple, line it with cardboard, and put it in the lid, do the whole thing. Works great. So galvanized trash cans are nice because the lid is actually a metal-to-metal seal. Paint cans. Unused paint cans, you can buy those at Home Depot. Those are great for HTs, all that stuff. Again, make sure there's an insulator that separates the electronics from that outer skin. There you go. You know, I'm not so intense on believing that you need to bury the products. I'm sure that will work, but I don't think you necessarily have to. And Faraday cages don't necessarily have to be grounded in this capacity. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then, you know, two-way radios. Pick your poison. I've got an FT2DR. I've thrown a couple of FRS radios in my Faraday cage bag. Really, all that's good. Just make sure you protect it. Make sure, because again, these have antennas on them. So disconnect antennas. Or if it's an FRS with a connected antenna, maybe it should be in a Faraday bag. Another question. Would you need to solder a bridge wire between the... So not with the galvanized, because they're connected around the rim. It's kind of like a friction fit, the way those trash cans work. If you know, they're like the metal, you know, galvanized, ribbed kind of looking trash can. You just need to slap the lid on that thing tight enough and make sure that your products are well insulated, and you'll be fine. So this part is, I I don't know, it was either Evan or Ethan or someone on the Discord chat mentioned you need to know how to fix all your crap, guys. So you're going to need to have coax connectors, BNC connectors, links of coax, wire. I'll talk about components in a bit, but so many things you have to have. So do we have... Oh, there we go. OH8STN is a good example. He has a YouTube channel where he talks about a lot of this stuff, off-grid stuff in particular. So make sure you check him out too. Mocan. Oh, yeah. There you go. So 08HTSN, he added a note there. There's a seal, a waterproof seal on the ammo lid, and if those two, the lid and the body, are not connecting each other, then that will not work. So he's saying remove it and something else. So yeah, make sure to check him out. He's got good information. So protecting all that from an EMP. Here's where we get into some opinions, beliefs, faith more than necessarily science. But doing is always better than not doing, so a lot of this stuff you can do and be ready for. So let's just walk through it. Yeah, so make sure you disconnect power lines, wires from equipment. This is not your primary radio, I'm assuming. This is a backup radio. So you probably have all this stuff stowed. Coiled and stowed. You get no warning from an EMP, and if you don't have redundancy, then you're done. So you don't have time to disconnect equipment, right? Same with a CME, really. Actually, CME is a little bit shorter. You might get a little bit of warning, but not a lot. Power, antennas, all that stuff turn into transmission lines for EMP/CME. So yeah, make sure that you handle that appropriately. Place radios, solar charge controllers are a big thing. They sell solar charge controllers, can be bought that are EMP resistant. Or you could just buy a cheap one and put it in a Faraday bag or cage or whatever. So charge controllers are vulnerable for this type of situation, so make sure you keep that in mind. Let's see. Solar panels are vulnerable to E3 pulses if they are connected to power lines, right? Again, that becomes a transmission line, energizes the panel. In some cases, I know my panel has it has a, what do they call that? A diode to prevent power from bleeding back onto the panel, in addition to what the charge controller does. And that would get burned out, for example, if you had a connection, a transmission line connected to it. So keep that in mind. Statements for, okay, so using my prop here, this EMP bag, right? The ads all say, yeah, EMP proof, 20,000 volts of protection. So this can be slightly dubious, and while I think it's better to check out take a look at what there's available on Amazon, and there's a certain level of trust you can have, we don't really know how great your effect will be, because we don't know where the potential blast will originate from. If it's directly over your house, you know, at the appropriate vertical distance, I don't know that there's necessarily that many commercial Faraday bags that will protect against that. Is it better than nothing? Absolutely. Yeah. So make sure you have something, potentially build something. I have a feeling that galvanized trash can will probably be the best thing, or an ammo can that you modify to support. And we can't really test these products in a lot of cases. I'm sure you can go into a lab type situation and do it, but again, that's taking into a little bit of variables that we don't necessarily have. The strength of the blast, the distance from your home, many things we can't account for. We can try to handle it via testing and experimentation, but still, it can be dubious. So, better be prepared than not, but keep in mind, this is still a bit of a scientific evidence available, but there's still a lot we don't have concrete proof, because we haven't really had a recent blast or recent CME event or anything like that that could put our current systems to test. So we're probably more on the paranoid side, I'd say, in a lot of this stuff. But it's always better to be prepared when paranoid than not prepared. And most of this stuff we're talking about is not too expensive, so that's good. If you have electronics that you're going to keep with you, that's going to become your redundant system. I would get schematics for them and learn what a lot of their parts are. Have different diodes on hand, have capacitors on hand that could be used to replace parts if said unit was ever damaged. Keep antenna systems, transmission power lines coiled and stowed for your emergency equipment. They all should be backup lines for radios you currently have deployed. So don't assume that your antenna that's on the roof with the coax is going to be what you're just going to take your dead radio and replace it and you're good to go. Maybe not. Probably not, but regardless, it's better to have a redundant system. So, absolutely. Theo T asks, can you put a trash can in another bigger trash can to have double protection? Yes, we call that double canning. No, I'm sure, yes, but no, I don't know that it probably gives you double protection. Not double, it's probably less than double, but sure, why not? So, tips or just things I would recommend. Consider an EMP hardened charge controller for solar panels. I already mentioned it, but just a reminder. Solar panels have electronic components. Make sure that you investigate panels and note parts that you need to keep spares of, like mine. Mine has a little lid in the back that you can open up, and those components could become damaged, so you might as well have a few on hand. As far as tools go, I know I mentioned this earlier. Learn how to solder, guys. If you haven't already built a kit, learn how to solder. You absolutely will want to have these tools if we were ever in a long-term grid down situation. You might actually, I didn't actually mention this, but if the grid was down and you don't have access to information like you would on the internet, you might want to start printing out manuals, printing out instructions, printing out schematics for well-known circuitry. All of those things becomes a wealth of information in a grid down type situation. So be prepared with physical media. And I don't mean, well, I've got the SD card, where do you want me to plug it? I mean physically paper with things printed on them. Yeah, so make sure you have that. Consider keeping a sealed lead acid battery around for emergencies. So, I love lithium-ion batteries. I love new technology in batteries. I love lightweight batteries. But a lot of those batteries have charge protection built into them that could be vulnerable. Depending on situations. I'm not going to go into all the details. It could be vulnerable. So all I'm saying here is it might be a good idea to have a decent sized sealed lead acid battery around. They are generally cheap. You're not going to go backpacking with them of high value, of high amp hour rating, but they'll work. Batteries are not really EMP vulnerable aside from ones that have charging equipment or protection equipment built onto them. So keep that in mind. Charging equipment should also be kept in protective containers and can be damaged during EMP. So if you have a laptop, that power brick should be in your bag. Recommend you get CERT training. And I put RACES and ARES and CERT training I have right next to each other. One is not necessarily better than the other, but CERT gives you a lot more community-based, well, some more community-based training that may be beneficial in this type of situation. ARES and RACES is going to help you with many other things. So, Colorado Ham says, learn how to reprogram your radios by hand. That is a great point. Make sure you know how to do that. Consider talking with like-minded neighbors on this topic to discuss setting up local nets and communication simulations. Start small, neighborhood watch, and emergency preparedness. So I made a lot of good friends with local neighbors that are in my city during my CERT training. So I highly recommend you take a look at that and think about getting more involved in that area, because you are helpful as a person, but you're more effective if you have more people available to help you. That's the essence of communication, right? Being separated from a person and being able to know what they know. Very important, particularly in an emergency situation. So, excellent. Tips continued. Do more. So get out. I talked about winter field days coming up. Set up your station often, even if it's in your living room or in your office, or take it to work and go outside for lunch. We're jokingly have a Twitter group called, Lunchtime on the Air, LTOTA, Lunchtime on the Air. So take your station to work, or a station, and learn to set it up. Tune and, that's a typo. Tune antennas so it's resonant. Don't count on tuners. So learn how your antennas work, guys. learn how to adjust them appropriately to make them resonant. I appreciate if you have a multi-band antenna that like an end fed that will not be resonant and you cannot tune it to be resonant because it's a random wire, then okay, fine. But there's all kinds of different things that that you need to learn. You need to learn now, and you should be doing it now. And it's a lot of fun, so get out there and do it. SOTA activations are deliciously good for learning how to do a lot of this stuff. So go do a SOTA activation. Find a one-pointer that's not a slog and go do it. I recommend working VHF, UHF, and HF nets if you can. Find a local one, not so much with HF, but find something that you are interested in, or a repeater that's like-minded of you, and get involved with that. Call CQ on simplex. How rarely do we do that? I know I do when we go do SOTA, like this last one I did a couple of days ago. I did a SOTA activation with Ben yesterday, and wow, I'm testing some antennas, and I just went for it. I went out and did it, and those antennas, we'll be talking about it. There'll be some videos coming on that. But I ended up just whipping out my FT2DR and doing the last couple of contacts on 2-meter simplex to complete the activation. So thanks for those that called me back. Learn how to build cables. Learn how to solder. Learn how an electronic schematic works. All of those things are hugely, hugely, hugely important, particularly in a grid down situation. So remember, it's not just about a massive disaster like an EMP. Everything I've said up to this point is useful, viable information that you should have. You should think about adding or learning or building your station or multiple stations up to that level of ability. And it's not that difficult. It's really, really not. Maybe the redundant radio will set you back a little bit. I know that, doesn't HRO have a sale going on the 891 right now? That thing's awesome. I want one really bad. I need to cool my jets. I'm spending a lot of money. So I think that's it for my slides. Yeah. You don't need most of the above tips if you are not worried about EMP. Cyber attack takes out the grid, not your system. So that's my final takeaway. I know when you start talking about EMP, people start thinking of prepper as a 4-letter word, and I don't want that. And I don't think prepper is a 4-letter word. But you may not think that EMP is that big a deal, so that's fine. Cyber attack takes out the grid. Your systems will be fine. You may not need a Faraday bag or whatever, but it's not that much to splash that in. So, Coogan says, "Yes, Josh, you made me spend a lot of money." Yeah, I bet. So let's take a look at my can of beer here. No, let's take a look at my EMP bag. So this is a Mission Darkness 15-liter tote, and it's also a waterproof bag. So this is a nice unit, and it's a roll top. And I'll show you briefly what I have in here, and then we will take a radio and try and use it on simplex. See if it works. So this is a bit of a taking a radio and tuning it to a station like an AM station or whatever, and putting it in a Faraday bag and go, see, it turned off. That's not proof that it's going to be EMP proof. That's just proof that it blocks that power of wave coming to your radio. So keep that in mind. Theo T asked a question that I get all the time. Is it true in an emergency you don't need a ham license to transmit? Theo, you were absolutely right. But will you have the wherewithal and the understanding of how the systems work, how nets work, how to be prepared to communicate on your radio, how to set it up, how to do all the glorious things you need to be able to do if you've never done it? Likelihood is low. So, first thing I have here is a simple netbook that is running Ubuntu that I have had for quite some time. Let me turn this around. There you go. That is works perfectly fine on FT8. JS call, name another one, it'll work on that. So good stuff. 2 FRS radios. This is my TNC connection, cat connection for my Zaiju. I know this isn't a 100-watt radio. This is just the one that I grabbed for this demonstration. And the Zaiju was a good one because I already have it set up to connect to this laptop. And that includes the handy mic. I'm really just trying to clear out this bag so that we can do a we can go ahead and test it with the HT. So there's the charger for the laptop. And this is the antenna systems, basically. And last but not least is my trusty FT60 and charging cable. So that is fine. That's all stuff that you can have an easy example. The Zaiju is fine. It's obviously not a 100 watts, but still it's much better than nothing. So, all right, what am I going to do here? How's the best way to do this? Let's go to... So, let's turn on my HT.
Amazing profanity. I could not believe that was Chris.
Okay, we're on simplex, so I'm tuned to simplex here. I'm going to lower the power on this guy. Low, just so we don't blow it out. KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ, CQ, CQ, KI6NAZ. Okay, so if anybody hears that.
Hey Josh, what's up, man? Kind of butting in our convo. No, I'm just kidding, man. Hey, your signal sounds a little bit better, then Josh kind of cut in a little bit.
Oh, hey, sorry about that. I didn't hear anybody. I apologize. I'll hang back. I just stepped on. We were just sitting here. I didn't hear anybody.
No, that sounds way better, especially after an Omni antenna.
Weird.
Looking for an amp myself, just
Well, let's find another frequency to go to so that we don't mess up simplex. So let's do 146 5. Oop. There we go. No, stop it. Okay. It's locked. KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ. Okay. So, let's crank the volume on this bad boy. It's cranked.
KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ.
Alright, let's try to put it in here. Take it easy, Justin. Alright, so just a couple rolls. So now, KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ. So I'm on low power right now. Let's bump it up. Medium. KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ. Up. Up. That might just be interference, but we shouldn't have any interference. KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ, KI6. Well, let's turn it up all the way. Maybe I need an extra roll. Okay, we're in high. Up. KI6NAZ. Oh, we may need another roll here. We may have a... This might not be an EMP bag at all. Let's put another roll in it just so I give it a fair shake. Okay, we put 3 or 4 rolls so it's all the way bolted down. KI6NAZ. KI6NAZ. Wow! I'm sending this back. So this is exactly what I said. This is exactly what I said. This is an EMP bag available on Amazon. I was just able to throw a bunch of watts at it and it just started working. That doesn't seem right. That seems like it's a problem. I'm going to have to return this. KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ, transmitting into a Faraday cage. Haha. That's not good. You can't ground this. It's an EMP bag. Well, let's put it on the ground. It's on the ground. It's still working. KI6NAZ, KI6NAZ. Yeah. So, that was 50 watts from 10 dB gain antenna on my roof into this bag, and it gets through. So what does that tell you? What did I say? That sometimes the claims of bag manufacturers is dubious? This is supposed to be a Faraday bag, guys. A Faraday bag, meaning it's only special protection. No, or certain waves get blocked. No. It's supposed to... that's not the point. So for anybody who's saying that's not an EMP, RF is not an EMP, that's not the point. It's supposed to be a Faraday cage. It's supposed to be a Faraday bag. Nothing is supposed to get through. Nothing. Not even radio. If radio gets through, EMP is going to waste that thing. So don't buy my link that's on my Amazon store. Reed Mayer, does an ammo can work? Yeah, but you got to remove the seal and make it so it's metal seal all the way around. Yeah. Well, what did we learn? Claims can be dubious, so make sure you do your own checking there. That's just one example. That's a very low power example. That's just radio. That's just RF. I'm going to turn on the call in. If anybody wants to call in, go ahead and call in now. I don't know why the kids are crying in the background. Sorry about that. So JD Hill says, is the inside of the bag lined with rubber from the glimpse of the opening, and it appears to be metallic foil lined for the contact? So that's a good question. They advertise it as being double lined, meaning it's a double layer of protection, and then there's the inner. So I'll show you, and it is metallic. So maybe we need to throw something around it. Within grasp of me is a... Will this work? This might work. Nintendo Switch case to the rescue. Let's see if I can do this. So I'll put this in a Switch case. I've got a signal stick on this right now. So I've got it twisted up. So it's not even a fully extended signal stick. It's just I'll throw this in this box. The zippers are plastic. Let's try it again. So maybe it's just a matter of... it's a nice bag. I mean, it's a cool bag. It looks very sturdy, and it is waterproof. The best way to test a Faraday bag is to put your cell phone in it and call it. Why is that the best way? I'm using a radio. What do you think your cell phone is? It's the same thing. I just went from low power, I hit medium power, and it started... Understand, cell phones are extremely low power. I'm putting 50 watts into this. Okay, let me step back. An EMP is extremely powerful. You want to test extreme power. You want the most power to go into the bag. You don't want a little itty bitty call my cell phone power. You want a massive, as much power as you can test it with. Yeah, it's in a KI6NAZ doing a radio check. KI6NAZ. Still working. Garbage. I hope everybody's understanding what we're saying here, right? Your phone, that is not a good example. That is not a good example. Yeah, not a good example. You need to test it with power. You need the power, right? So keep that in mind. I'm not trying to call you out or anything, but yeah, that's not what we want. Okay. So why don't you call in? We got a couple of minutes left here if you want to. And maybe talk about your preps. I'm willing to hear your thoughts on what you're doing. If you've got a cell phone, not cell phone, a ham radio kind of preparedness plan, or maybe you're working on it, working towards it, got some ideas, or you take issue with anything I talked about today. Would it help to short out antenna jacks and DC inputs on receivers in the storage? No. Nope. It wouldn't. Yeah, I understand, and this is the important thing to keep in mind here. Radios they're very sensitive equipment. They pick up signals in the RF spectrum at very low, like minute little itty bitty pieces, and then EMP goes, "What's going on here?" and just smashes all the little tiny circuitries all to bits, because it's connected to an antenna or whatever. It'll fare better if it's not connected to an antenna. But just think about that. Like, you're literally, like, powering up the most powerful radio station, and you just have your radio right next to it and go, I hope it's going to be okay, and just, blah, obliterates it, because it's, like, the most broadband, wide spectrum covering thing out there, and it's extremely powerful. What's Julian saying? This is why field testing is really important. I'm never going to believe what somebody else tells me. Prove it ourselves. There you go, buddy. And field strength meters. I'll add that to the Amazon. Field strength meters are really important. Yeah. That's a good analogy. Colorado ham. Wrecking ball meets glass factory. Yeah. Yeah, Evan, there was another thing. Microwaves were mentioned. Microwaves are not a Faraday cage. They just restrict microwaves. Those little holes, microwaves are, it's sized right that it blocks that, but it won't stop EMP. Let's see. My SSID for APRS is KI6NAZ-7 or, what else do I use? 10? I think 7 is what I use. Yeah. Juan Carlos just obviously tuned in the chat because he's asking, so is there any real way to protect your station against the... Yeah, put it in a Faraday cage, a real Faraday cage, not a little Faraday cage. And I apologize last week for those that showed up. I forgot to mention. There was like 3 or 4 people that we had that called in that just got busy and I didn't end up getting to. I got to one person and it just got wrapped up. So I apologize. I'll take your questions though if you want to call now. But yeah. What is a real one? What do you use? Oh, yeah. I mean, we just took something that's a highly rated bag off of Amazon, and it's probably tested up to the level that was already mentioned. Somebody took a cell phone, put it in there, and called it, and it didn't work. Well, yeah, it's super low power. I put it up against just 50 watts of local VHF, UHF. High gain. I got a pretty decent high gain antenna, and it went right through at medium power. So I think that's like 10 watts maybe. So no good. I'm going to end up contacting the company and say, what gives? Because the title says EMP. In fact, I'm going to... While I wait, if any of you want to call in, I'm going to pull up that stupid thing right now. Somebody's getting called out on the live stream. It says EMP Bag. It does say EMP Bag. Oh, that's not going to work. Oh, I think somebody just called in. 1 second. I'll get to you in a second. There we go. Yeah, look at that thing. Okay, let me get the caller while you guys look at this screen. I wondered what that ding was, and I realized it's because I didn't... Hey, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Hosh, this is November 0, Bravo Tango Charlie.
Ooh, that was November 0, Bravo Tango Charlie. Got it. Okay. BTC, are you a Bitcoin guy?
Yes, actually, that's why I got the vanity call. That's exactly why I wanted it.
Called it. How's it going?
It's going all right. I was just watching the live stream and was very interested in your EMP/emergency comm setup, so figured I'd call in.
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit on the... I showed it on the stream already, but for me... Oh, my stream... Hopefully you guys are seeing my stream. It's complaining right now. I recommended at least 100 watt. In fact, let me just pull the slides back up. What's going to be? Can you see the screen? So I recommend a simple approach. 100 watt HF transceiver. Portable's okay. So I mentioned in Yaesu 891 would be kind of what I would do. 50 watt VHF, UHF mobile, separate radios. Some kind of solar panels to power the system, at least 200 watts. Batteries, I like both lithium ion and sealed lead acid. Sealed lead acid have the added kind of, I don't know, perk of being low tech so that you know they're going to work in an EMP. And then make sure that if you connect to the computer, you have a computer that'll work with your radio in case you wanted to work digital modes or you were asked to do something like WinLink for an emergency response type thing. So those are kind of my recommendations. Do you have any emergency comms or thinking about going that way?
I'm thinking about doing it. I don't have anything as of yet, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't necessarily thinking about preparing against EMP. I was just thinking about preparing for like prolonged grid down, like a snowstorm, because I live in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Snowstorm knocks out the power or something like that happens, like some sort of regional power outage that lasts like several days and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still stand by most of what I said, regardless of EMP. I think solar panels, you're going to want, if it's a grid down situation or emergency preparedness situation, 200 watts is a good number to start to be able to use the radio and charge your batteries consistently. So, obviously, you
So
need to have matching batteries to get you through the evening if you're charging during the day.
here was my thought.
Mm-hmm.
My thought was that if you get enough solar panels and enough batteries, that you could transmit, you could, with your radio, theoretically, if you wanted to, transmit on absolute max power. So if you're running 100 watts, if you could transmit on 100 watts constantly, which of course you would not be doing
Mm-hmm.
on FM, which is the hardest because of the fact that it keys the transmitter and keeps it at full power all the time. Because
Right.
like sideband, the power goes up and down
Yep.
as you're talking. If there's no voice, then there's no power or very little power.
Yep.
And if there's voice, then you're keying up to about 70% of your power.
Sure.
But
Uh,
FM is 100% duty cycle, so when it's transmitting, it's on full blast.
Right.
If
And
you're
that's
running
that's
100 watts, you're running 100 watts.
That's a good point. I'm talking about 100 watt HF, most likely 50 watts
Right.
VHF UHF. I don't really know of 100 watt VHF UHF mobile that's available these days. I think the 9700 or whatever is going to be 100 watts from ICOM, but that's not really a portable. That's a luggable. Yeah, so I can't comment on the FM, but I can comment on single sideband, and I used a 20 amp hour simple lithium ion battery. I call simple, with a 100 watt panel on my ICOM 7300 doing 100 watt single sideband, and I ran all day long for a field day. So you'd probably burn it out not too long. You'd run out of power not too long into the evening, but we ran, I think, 3 hours after nightfall, and we were fine. So FM would be your problem, though.
Because kind of what I was thinking was if you could transmit at full power
Mm-hmm.
for 24 hours
Mm-hmm.
with your key constantly held down.
Oh,
which
you can't do
obviously in
that.
ham radio, you wouldn't.
Well, you'd burn the radio up before you drain the battery.
You would burn the radio up. But the thing
Yeah.
is if you prepare for a worst case scenario like that, if
Um,
you're not transmitting at full power and you're not transmitting constantly, those batteries would last you a really long time.
Yeah, I'm not against that. The only problem that you'll find is going that direction, your batteries are going to become unmovable because they'll be that big. So if there's
That is true.
there's math you can do, maths. I'm not prepared with the equation, but basically you just take the amp hours, you figure out what your PTT transmit power consumption is, and then plot that against how many hours you want to run. Quickly, you'll find that to be able to sustain 24 hours of nonstop transmission, then you would be requiring a huge battery with a very large amp hour. So for portability sense, for maneuverability, you probably just want to set a rational goal of being able to operate 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and that's a 60-40, call it. And 60-40 is probably an aggressive number. 40% transmitting, 60% receiving. And then build your battery needs off of that.
Right. And I was just thinking for like a home. I was actually more thinking. I guess this doesn't really have to do with the conversation, but I was more thinking of an actual like home station with your antenna on the roof and things like that.
Yeah, and Ethan in the chat posted there are calculators for duty cycle and figuring out what kind of power you need. But yeah, I'm eventually going to get all my radios onto solar, so this is something that I'm going to end up doing anyway. But again, that doesn't help me with an EMP because they'd be connected to transmission lines, which could fry the panels and definitely the charge controller. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you for calling in. Did you have any other questions or anything, other comment you wanted to make?
No, that's it. I just Real big fan of your streams. I've been watching them, and I think you're doing a really good job, and I'm going to go back to watching as soon as I get off the call with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words, and yeah, thanks for watching. This is a fun one because it's kind of my worlds coming together of both being prepared and also being an amateur radio operator. So thanks for calling in. I appreciate it.
Because
Oh, go ahead.
I'm trying to get into CERT and stuff like that as well. So.
Oh yeah, you're only gonna find that if your county or your city supports it. That's the trick.
Yeah, my city does. Thankfully, I'm in Minneapolis, so we do, and so I'm trying to get into CERT and AREs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because you end up with like a bag, like they give you a kit that you can that has all kinds of emergency equipment in it. So I loved it. I went for a couple of days, learned a lot of stuff, and they end up giving you this cool backpack. It doesn't have the greatest equipment in it. I ended up swapping most of it out, but it's like, yeah, it's, you know, awesome. It's awesome that the city's committing to, yeah.
Good starter one.
Yeah, and I just like the fact that the city's like, they think this is important, so it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, it's good talking to you. N0BTC. I like the vanity call. That's a good one.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
All right, take it easy.
You too. Bye.
Bye. All right, I'm just adding his call sign. So this program I use for doing the call-ins, I can add notes and give people names. So it's good to be able to put names in it so that I know people have called before. Okay, so let me go back and let me shame this bag a little bit more. I'm gonna reach out to this company. Yeah, I bought this thing, and no, not too happy about it. It's a, let's see, what do they say? EMP shield. Yeah, and it went up since I bought it. It's actually more expensive now. I did not pay $99 for it. But that's garbage. So I'm going to contact them on what the heck they meant by EMP. Military grade. I'm wondering if I screwed up and they did some cheeky business where they said it's like the lowest level of EMP shield. No, it only shows up twice. Oh, there he goes. Okay. Offer EMP protection. EMP and CME protections for you ham folks. Let me put the call-ins there. Yeah, not happy about that. The true test will only happen. I love the comments, so now we can read comments. Remember when we did this for the Baofangs? That was a glorious stream. I love that. The true test will only happen in the event of an EMP event. Keeping my fingers crossed, since that is why I purchased it as a Faraday cage. Yeah, if you got a radio, you can test it out right now, and it doesn't work. It's not good. That's not good. I'm literally going to contact them after we're done here and tell them, hey, wait, is that a Baofeng? I found a Baofeng! Spot the Baofeng, guys! Spot the Baofeng! Of course there's a Baofeng. Of course there's a Baofeng. Excellent. I should just take that picture and make that the... Jesus. Oh. I always love that when the Baofangs show up. How many people we have still watching? Because I'm losing my mind now. All right, let's hit the chat, and then we'll do a Patreon thing. And remember, Discord after chat, of course. So make sure that... David Brown says, by the way, galvanized can needs aluminum tape around the seal. Not really. Not if it's not if it fully seals around the lid. You don't need to. But I'm not going to begrudge anybody doing that. Oh, Bo, that's a good question. Bull Hobo asks, what you said earlier that some people don't believe that EMPs are a real thing or that they aren't dangerous to the power grid and electronics. What are they basing the assertion on? So I have heard other people tell me that quite simply you can turn a device off and on and it'll be fine. And it'll come right back and there'll be no problem. That's for like your cell phone. They're not necessarily saying that about the grid. That's a whole separate problem. but still. Yeah. So, yeah, make sure you... all I'm saying is if you want to prepare, it's not hard to do so. And don't get caught up in what other people tell you, because it's good. This bag, though, boy, oh boy. I'm very unhappy about this. All right. So Alan Cox says, look up Starfish Prime on Wikipedia. So there have been tests for EMP, but we've grown in our technology so much that we've either created more vulnerable technology or we've learned to shield our technology. So we're in this weird limbo. Some technology will be very resistant, and some things like the grid could just be hopelessly destroyed because of it. So we've come a little bit since the Starfish Prime studies and the studies of the Soviets in relative the same time. And even still, and actually the reason why I didn't bring up Starfish Prime is it happened so far away from Hawaii, and very little happened other than some lights turned off. There was very little damage, and so I don't want to use that as an example and say, see, it's all fine, or let people be led to believe that there's not a real concern there, because I think that's a misnomer. There wasn't really any damage for Starfish Prime. Eric Menson asked, does disconnecting the power source battery from the wall lessen the risk? Yes. Yes, it does. Let's see. I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I clarify everything I'm saying too. The big thing you need for a Faraday cage, because I'm reading comments and I want to make sure I'm not misleading people. Airborne Ranger 1 each. I have a stupid question. What's wrong with the Baofeng? Nothing. Nothing is wrong with the Baofeng, aside from the spurious emissions, but nothing is wrong with the Baofeng. But Baofengs are showing up everywhere in the media. In fact, if at any time you find a Baofeng in the media, I want you to send it to me. Tag me on a Twitter post, tag me on Instagram, take a screenshot, send it to me. Send it to hashnasi@gmail.com. Okay, so Faraday cages need to be an unbroken seam of conductive material with an inner insulator in which you put electronics. That is it. That is a Faraday cage, okay? It needs to be an unbroken seam of something metal or conductive of electricity. A galvanized trash can will create an unbroken seal around the lid with its pressure fit if it's properly set correctly. You can't just, punch a big bend in the side of it and have this gaping hole. You can't do that. It's got a seal. An ammo can, if you properly go in and remove the seal and put something in there to fill that void and it makes a complete unbroken seal, then it's a Faraday cage. The only reason that you would go to the extra level of using aluminum tape is if you question that unbroken seal would remain being banged up in the garage or whatever. So you don't have to go to the next level, and I said I won't begrudge anybody who does, but remember that the mission is to create an unbroken seal. That is the point for the Faraday cage. So keep that in mind. So somebody was saying tin hat territory, foil hat territory. Oh boy. Bull Hobo says, I'm a live stream chat moderator on the Non Sequitur show, where we have flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, etc. as guests regularly. So I know all about crazy. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, JD Hill says silica packs are important for keeping moisture out. Indeed. Yeah. If you have your radios in a bathtub full of water, that would be a very good... No, water is a conductor of electricity. Shoot, that won't work as a Faraday cage. I think you can hear my son yelling in the background. No, maybe not. Okay, I think that'll do it. I'm going to go to Patreon or Discord. But before that, patrons... I need to actually pull up the actual thing now because the text is getting so tiny. Sorry about that. So we had a bit of a snafu at the end. YouTube cut my audio. So thank you to the patrons: Michael Nieswinder, Chris Ebert, Carrie Blackwell, Jason Siebert, David Dansro, Danny Miller, Franklin Lewis, Brad Snyder, Ben Kellum, Dean Johnson, Kenneth Miyamoto, Andy, Michael Baxter, Colorado Ham, Denver Hedge, Geraldo Kelso, sorry, Gareth Broadhead, Dennis Dunderdale, Anthony, Justin Blackburn, Garrett Larson, the infamous No Name, Dennis Mickelson, George Gaini, Jason Brown, Richard Dragon, KG6WFR, Mark Chase, Corwin Crandall, Ron Thorson, Corey Sheldon, Raymond Cracker, and the Brew Crew. Yeah, sorry about that. There was a weird snafu. We lost some of the video, and the audio got snipped at the end. So I'm recording this after the fact. Big thanks to everybody that came out and watched the show last night. And yeah, sorry about the audio issue and the sync up. And I will be reposting the video, or you're watching the reposted video. So thanks for sticking through. Had a lot of fun talking about EMPs and prepping. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, reach out in the comments below. Send me a message at hoshnasi@gmail.com. Join the Facebook group, join the Discord. The Patreon newsletter is going out soon. Every month it goes out, and there's special perks over there. The links are all in the description. Then, obviously, this audio is not synced up at this point, but yeah, thanks so much, and we will talk to you later. See ya.